right, we do have a couple questions, so just stay put. I'm going to stay down here. Okay, so we have a question from Eric Goldberg. In your opinion, what outcomes are most important to collect and therefore track? Are those easily accessible to all?
Yeah, so that and therein is the question. You know, I think what was done in those studies with 12 different outcomes was amazing, but obviously the burden on clinicians, the burden on the patients, it's not going to allow that. You know, we used to get pushback about just trying to have people complete two things, like a pain rating and an oswestry. And so there has to be the trade-off behind that. I think pain and disability are the obvious answers on that. So something for pain, something for disability. I think psychological distress is a good one as well. The impact study recommended four primary domains, but pain, interference with daily activity, emotional distress, and then fatigue was another one as well as satisfaction with it as well. So I think those are all kind of options for it. We've done a study where we've looked at what outcomes patients feel are important, and what we asked them about was pain, fatigue, emotional distress, and interference with daily activity. And we found clusters. We found subgroups of individuals. So these are all physical therapy patients, but there was a subgroup of physical therapy patients that only cared about pain. So pain was the most important outcome for them to show improvement in. There was a subgroup that wanted pain and interference to improve, and so those were the two most important ones for them, and those ones are kind of that's the slam dunks for us. I think that's what we as physical therapists what we tend to work on. But there was a third group of individuals, and again, these are physical therapy patients. These are patients attending physical therapy and asked what outcomes are important to them in response to their physical therapy, and they wanted improvement in everything. They wanted improvement in pain and interference with daily activities, but they also wanted to have improvement in emotional distress and fatigue as well.
So I think, and you can tell me if I'm off base, I think there isn't one outcome that we're looking for, so we should pick a meaningful one and do it consistently.
You can, yeah. I mean, I think that I think is a strong point. At least do something consistently, even if you're not getting the optimal outcome measures, as long as you're doing something consistently. And as rehabilitation providers, pain and disability are probably the two good ones. But certainly, I think as you start to reflect on yourself, there may be other outcomes that are of value to patients and valued as important to patients that you may be very good at helping them with, and so that may not be reflected in just the couple of outcomes.
Awesome. Okay, we have another question from Dalton Derthik. Sorry if I mispronounced that. How would you recommend either faculty or CIs help students to better understand and improve these soft skills so that they have had some practice prior to beginning their career? Any particular practices, feedback, or advice? Yeah,
and I'm probably not going to give a very satisfying answer on that one. But so what I'll tell you is that my own personal opinion is I think as rehabilitation providers, most of us are pretty damn good at that already. You know, I think a lot of you, that's what drove you to the profession. And like I think of our students, and I mean they're just amazing people. They're just really great people. So I think one consideration is just to acknowledge that. You know, I think a lot of times we're looking for the hard science that somebody's getting better because we've developed the optimal exercise that's strengthening this muscle, and that's what they really need. That if we can't get that muscle strong, if we don't give them the right dosage and the right exercise and the optimal way to do it, that's what we need to do to get them better, and that's why they get better. Or the manual therapy technique has to be done just right. And in reality, I think a lot of why people respond is based on these soft skills. I think a lot of providers do it well already, but I think number one, just to acknowledge it, don't beat yourself up because you think that you're having a hard time finding that specific little thing or treating that specific little thing, and acknowledge that these are influential in it. But then self-reflection as well. And if there are parts of this that maybe as faculty, I think we always we interact with the students. We go through. And so we see when somebody is being defensive or not. We do a year-end competency. It's basically an OSCE for the students where they have patient situations, and we film these. And then we go back and we look at them, and we get feedback from the athletes or standardized patients. We get feedback from the actors about it. But most of the students do really well. But occasionally you get somebody on something like that is just doing something that's off. You know, one example we had years ago where one student just stood right over the actor. They hadn't been on their clinicals yet, but the whole time was just standing right over the actor, and the actor commented on it. And so things like that, you know, we can bring that to their attention. You know, call the student in. The student was mortified; they had no idea. But things like that you may not be aware of.
Okay, we have time for one more from Matt Scarsbrook. If you were designing the patient-therapist compatibility algorithm based on your reading, would you put greater weighting on level of therapist expertise or greater patient-therapist values overlap?
I would put it more on the values. So the expertise hasn't really panned out to be that influential. So, you know, more experienced therapists, outcomes are not dramatically different, much as we'd like to think that would be the case. So they aren't as dramatically different as we'd like to think. And so I in my opinion, and based on what I've read, I would think that the values and matching that way is going to be more important.
Awesome. Okay, so it is 11:15, so it's time for a short 15-minute break, so you can, again, stretch your legs, get some sunshine, and then we will be back here at 11:30 for our next speaker. So one more round of applause for our speaker.
What I'll tell you, if anybody has any questions, if you want the slides or anything, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always on email, so love to hear from you.